I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Police lights flashed red and blue, painting the walls of my house in a frantic dance. The sight of FBI agents swarming the neighborhood sent a jolt of panic through me. My neighbors were huddled outside, whispering and guessing, and right in the thick of it was Linda, our overbearing HOA president. Her face was a mix of smug defiance and creeping unease as two agents stood beside her, one clutching a clipboard, the other waving angrily toward the empty spot in my driveway where my bus had been parked just hours before. My very important, definitely not abandoned bus. "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered, clutching my head. I knew exactly what had happened. Linda had finally crossed the line. She'd had my bus towed. What she didn't know, what I couldn't tell anyone, was that it wasn't just a bus. It was a fully operational mobile forensic lab, packed with critical evidence for an ongoing FBI investigation. Linda had basically gift-wrapped federal secrets and handed them off to who knows who, and now the FBI was looking at me for answers. It all started a few weeks back when I moved into the neighborhood. I'd been working with the FBI on a hush-hush software security project, building digital forensics tools to track organized crime. The bus was their idea, a mobile lab so I could analyze evidence without compromising my home's internet security. It was unmarked, just a plain blue vehicle that blended into the street like some forgotten delivery van. But Linda hated it from day one. She ran the HOA like a dictator, equal parts wannabe cop and petty schoolteacher. No tacky lawn ornaments, no loud wind chimes, and definitely no parked buses that ruined her precious neighborhood vibe. She'd leave snarky notes on my door, email me nonstop, and once even measured the gap between my trash cans to enforce some obscure rule. The bus, though, was her obsession. She called it an eyesore, a junk heap, and demanded I get rid of it. Every time I said no, she ramped up her crusade. Fines, threats, tantrums. I should have seen this coming. That morning, I'd planned to move the lab to a secure site for the next phase of the investigation. But when I stepped outside, the bus was gone. Just an empty driveway and Linda smirking in her yard, holding a clipboard like she'd just cured world hunger. "Where's my bus?" I demanded. She flashed that fake smile of hers, the kind that looked like she was holding in a hiccup. "Oh, that old thing. I had it towed. It's been an eyesore for weeks." "You what?" My voice broke. "Linda, that's not just a bus. You had no right." "I gave you plenty of warnings," she huffed. "It was obviously abandoned." "I followed HOA protocol." "Your made-up rules, you mean?" She rolled her eyes. "I called the towing company. They said it's in a secure lot." I didn't wait for her to finish. I stormed inside and grabbed my phone. The FBI was going to freak. Within minutes, my contact at the bureau picked up. His voice tightened the second I explained. "Wait," he cut in. "You're saying the evidence was inside?" "All of it," I said. "Oh no," he muttered. "We're coming over. Don't move." By the time they arrived, Linda had caught on that something was seriously wrong. Her smugness faded into a defensive scowl. "I don't see the big deal," she snapped as an agent grilled her. "It's just some old van. Why are you acting like I kidnapped the president?" I pulled an agent aside, desperate. "What's the worst-case scenario?" His face was grim. "That bus had evidence from a cartel case. Fingerprints, digital files, surveillance data. If someone gets it," my stomach twisted. "Linda had it towed hours ago," I said. "It could be anywhere." The agents tracked down the towing company fast. The bus was in a downtown lot, a sketchy, barely monitored spot known for car break-ins. Worse, it had been left unlocked because Linda convinced the driver it was abandoned junk that didn't matter. Junk. It belonged to the feds. We raced downtown, Linda reluctantly tagging along. When we got there, my heart sank. The bus was still parked, but the back doors were wide open. Papers were scattered on the ground, evidence bags torn apart, and the faint smell of stale beer hung in the air. Someone had been inside. "Oh no," I whispered. "I'll fix this," Linda insisted. "I'll call someone." "You've done enough," I snapped. The FBI started securing the scene, but then an agent waved us over. On the windshield, in red paint, were 4 words, "We know you're watching." Linda's face went white. "Oh," she breathed. That's not good." "It's worse than not good," the agent said darkly. "This is a national security threat now." I stared at the mess, the papers, the message. My frustration with Linda felt petty compared to what was unfolding. The cartel knew the FBI was onto them, and someone in our quiet little suburb had just handed them the keys to fight back. Linda stood beside me, shoulders slumped. For the first time, she looked human, scared. "I didn't mean to," she started, her voice barely audible. "You've dragged us into something massive," I said. "We're both in danger now." I glanced down the alley beside the lot. A figure stood at the far end, still, watching. The second our eyes locked, they vanished around the corner. "Did you see that?" I asked an agent. He nodded. "Yeah, and I'd bet they're not alone." The air was thick with tension as the FBI surrounded the compromised bus, radios buzzing with updates. The cartel had the upper hand now, and it was sinking in fast. Linda stayed close, her usual bravado replaced by raw fear. I almost pitied her, almost. Agent Carter, a no-nonsense guy, came back from talking to the towing company. "The driver left the keys on the dash," he said, his tone sharp. "Figured no one would touch an old bus." Linda stayed quiet. Smart move. "What about security footage?" I asked. "Erased," Carter replied. This wasn't random. They knew what they were after. My mind raced. The cartel wouldn't bother wiping cameras just for papers. They knew the bus held damning evidence tying them to crimes across the state. Now it was gone. Linda wrung her hands. "I thought it was just some beat-up bus," she stammered. "It was a federal lab," Carter snapped. "And now we're in deep trouble because of you." Her eyes welled up, but I couldn't spare the energy to console her. "What's our next move?" I asked Carter. "We've tracked cartel activity to a bar on the edge of town," he said. "They use it to launder cash and pass messages. Someone there might know where the evidence went." Linda perked up. "Wait, I know someone at that bar." We all stared. "What?" I said. "At the last HOA meeting, I heard Nancy Miller's son works there. She's in my book club. Maybe he's seen something." Carter and I traded looks. It was a long shot, but it was all we had. Linda insisted on coming, swearing she could get the kid to talk. Against my better instincts, we let her. The bar was a grimy hole in the wall that reeked of stale beer and cigarettes. Linda, in her pastel sweater and gold earrings, looked absurdly out of place. Carter flashed his badge at the bartender, a rough guy with a scorpion tattoo, and asked for Nancy's son, Jake. A lanky teen shuffled out from the kitchen, freezing when he saw the badge, but easing up when Linda waved. "Hey, Mrs. Thompson," Jake said, forcing a smile. "What's up, Jake?" Linda said, suddenly all maternal. "I know this is odd, but have you seen any shady types here lately? Maybe tied to, you know?" She glanced at Carter. Jake hesitated, eyes flicking to the bartender. "I don't know anything," he said stiffly. Carter leaned in. "Jake, this isn't a game. Dangerous people are involved. If you know something, speak now." Jake swallowed. "There's this guy, quiet, hood up, sits in the back. Last night, he was on the phone about files in a van downtown. Left in a black SUV." Carter's jaw tightened. "That's enough for me." We sped back to the FBI's command unit, where agents scanned traffic cams for black SUVs. Linda hovered, jittery. "You think they'll hurt someone?" she asked quietly. "If they think someone can ID them, yeah," I said. An agent shouted, "We've got something." Grainy footage showed a black SUV by an old warehouse on the city's east side. Carter grabbed his gear, and soon we were headed there. The warehouse was a wreck, broken windows, rusted shutters. Carter's team surrounded it while Linda, against all reason, refused to stay in the car. "I caused this," she said. "I have to help fix it." "You'll help no one if you get shot," I muttered, but she trailed us anyway. The agents breached the door. Inside, it smelled of oil and mildew, crates stacked haphazardly. In a corner, we found the stolen evidence, laptops, files, bags, spread across a table. As we gathered it, footsteps echoed upstairs. 2 armed men appeared. "Get down," Carter yelled. We dove behind crates as the agents shouted orders. The men bolted for the back exit. One got tackled, but the other charged toward us. Linda, in a wild move, swung her huge purse at his face. He stumbled, dazed, and Carter pinned him. Panting, Linda stared at her bag. "You hit him with a handbag," I said, almost laughing. "It's leather," she said weakly. "Good quality." With the cartel guys caught and the evidence secured, Carter's team loaded the bus. Linda watched, quiet with guilt. "I really screwed up," she said. "Yeah," I agreed, "but you helped fix it too." Walking back to the car, she chuckled faintly. If the HOA gig fails, maybe I'll join the FBI. They'd boot you for too many fines, I grinned. For once, her smile felt real. The relief of recovering the evidence didn't last. The cartel's message, "We know you're watching," stuck with me, too deliberate to ignore. Carter approached as the agents packed up. "We've got a problem," he said. "The evidence is here, but key surveillance files are missing. Encryption data that keeps the cartel off our radar." "So they could come back?" Linda asked, overhearing. "If they think you know something," Carter said, "they won't care how little you're involved." That day, the FBI secured my place, stationing agents nearby, but I wasn't naive. The cartel had already slipped through once. At midnight, my phone buzzed, an unknown number. "You should have stayed out of it." "Too late now." I called Carter instantly. Agents arrived fast, and Linda, predictably, was on her porch in curlers, gawking. "They're testing you," Carter said after I showed him the text. "Seeing how you'll react." The next day, Linda called, frantic. "They broke into my house. It's trashed." I rushed over. Her perfect home was chaos. Chairs flipped, drawers emptied, photos scattered. The FBI swept it. No bugs, but it wasn't just a scare tactic. "They're looking for something," Carter said. Linda was a wreck, her bossy shell gone. She showed up at my door that night, frazzled. "I can't stay there," she said. "I'm scared they'll come back." "Stay here," I offered, bracing for her usual nagging. But she was quiet, barely sipping the tea I made. "I just wanted order," she said after a long pause. I thought I was right. "You stole a federal bus?" I shot back. "I didn't know," she muttered. "I thought you were just some slob with junk in your yard." Her regret was real. I believed her. Days later, Carter called. We traced the text to a burner phone. Surveillance caught the buyer, a low-level cartel runner, sending a message. The FBI watched his last known spot, hoping he'd lead them higher up. 2 nights later, as Linda and I sat in my living room, my phone buzzed again. "You're out of time." My cameras pinged. A black SUV crept by, pausing at Linda's car. "They're here," I whispered. She paled. I called Carter, and the SUV slunk off, but the chill lingered. "I'm not safe," Linda said. "We'll figure it out," I promised. The FBI traced the runner to a storage unit, suspecting the missing files were there. They planned a raid that night. I convinced Carter to let me tag along. I knew the data. Linda and I waited by the van, tense, until Carter radioed. "We've got the files, but one guy slipped away. Agents are heading to your street." Linda's phone rang. Her face drained. "They're at my house," she stammered. "We're leaving," I said, grabbing my keys. We drove aimlessly until Carter sent us to a safe spot with agents. Only then did Linda crumble, sobbing. "I didn't mean for this," she whispered. "I just wanted rules." I smirked tiredly. "Next time, knock before towing a bus." The next morning, the neighborhood felt oddly peaceful. The cartel was done, the data recovered, the FBI pulling out. Linda and I stood on my porch, drained but safe. "It's over?" she asked, unsure. "Yeah," I said. "They've got bigger fish now." Carter stopped by, shaking my hand. To Linda, he said, "You're lucky. This could have been worse." "I know," she murmured. "Next time," he smirked, "let your neighbor park his bus." She forced a laugh. Later, I walked her home. She hesitated at her door, spooked. "You okay?" I asked. "I'll be fine," she said, unconvincingly. "If you need me, I'm here, unless you tow another bus." She smiled faintly. Things normalized slowly. Linda's HOA reign softened. Her notes felt less like commands. One day, she brought a plastic flamingo and a box to my porch. "Peace offering," she said. The box held papers, an evidence tag, and a flash drive I'd thought was lost. "Found it under my couch," she admitted. "They dropped it when they trashed my place." "You've had this for days?" "I forgot," she shrugged. I laughed at the absurdity. An HOA tyrant turned accidental hero. That night, she left a note, an HOA permit for my bus, with a scrawled, "Don't push your luck." I chuckled. Peace wasn't perfect, but it was enough.